Thank you very much.
minutes.
Mr. Console, reporting has shown that American families are bracing for higher prices as consumer confidence fell drastically in February in response to Trump's actions as president so far. In my home state of California, a dozen eggs are going for $9 or more, and that's just the beginning. Families expect the price of housing, groceries, gas, and basic necessities to rise even further. This is especially true now that Trump said he would institute 25% import taxes on consumers and businesses buying goods from Canada and Mexico, and stock markets dropped in response. Given these trends, what are the Republican policies aimed at decreasing the cost of living? Under Republican leadership, can we only expect the cost of living to rise?
I think the policy the policy uncertainty about what's happening, for instance, I was off the grid last night, so I didn't know whether or not we were going to have a North American trade war. When I woke up this morning, apparently we do. That kind of policy uncertainty is very poor for investments, very poor for growth. And the emphasis on prices increasing at a period where consumers and everyday people are much more sensitive to prices than they may have been in decades, more recent decades, I do worry it will feed into inflation expectations, price increases, wage demands in a way that would be much more persistent than what we saw during the Biden administration.
But let me just ask you, this business of increasing the tariffs on our neighbors, will that absolutely increase the cost of living for Americans because there may be retaliation of some sort?
Very, very much so. I mean, that's kind of the point of the tariffs, to raise prices. We're already seeing auto prices going up over the last several months in anticipation of this, I believe, after having declined for, about 2 years beforehand. And, the way it particularly hits internal supply chains, because so many, like a car will go across the border so many times, I think it will be pretty complicated and very difficult for firms to do, even if there was clearer communications and a better process for implementing them.
Committee Democrats have many proposals to address the rising cost of living. We're fighting for legislation to grow the middle class, lower costs, and fight against wealthy corporations. I'm especially committed to addressing our nation's growing housing and homelessness crisis through bills like My Housing, Crisis Response Act, Ending Homelessness Act, and Down Payment Toward Equity Act. If Republicans will take up these bills and pass them, would Democratic policies lower Americans' housing costs?
I believe so. I believe there's, a real supply issue as well. But I do believe that getting more money into people's pockets will help, provide economic security, and crucially finding ways to build the labor force, build the middle class, better health outcomes, better education outcomes. I think builds our labor force and our productivity and our ultimate growth.
Do you have any idea what percentage of the American public are paying 30% or more for rent, for example?
It would not shock me to be quite high, but I don't know. I'm sorry.
Do you believe that with the bills that I've just identified that we're passing, this would increase perhaps the ability to develop more housing, more affordable housing for people who are making lower incomes?
I believe so.
And so would you recommend that these bills be passed not only by Democrats, but by Republicans who are having tremendous problems in their own districts with people not being able to afford a decent cost of living?
I think housing is a serious concern for bipartisan support of major initiatives, yes.
Thank you very much, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman, I should say, from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, who's also chair.